A cheerful girl suddenly talks to her, full of energy and questions. She isn't used to this. When asked why she chose this school, she tries to brush it off. But the truth slips out. She failed the entrance exam. Embarrassed, she hides behind an eye mask, pretending to nap. She tells herself it's fine. She should have been somewhere better, but there are good things here too. More time to study, fewer expectations. She won't dwell on failure. But just when she thinks she has moved on, the past returns. A familiar figure appears, stirring old emotions. She thought she had left it all behind, but it's not over yet. Nagisa never expected this. The past she tried to leave behind is right in front of her, smiling as if nothing had changed. She remembers why she failed the exam, not because she wasn't smart, but because she never showed up. That day in the cold, she had been nervous. Then she saw a girl collapse on the ground. She rushed to help, but by the time she realized it, she had missed everything. Shocked and embarrassed, she locked herself in her room, avoiding the world. Eventually, she forced herself to move on. She changed her look, passed another school's entrance exam, and left her past behind. Or so she thought. Now in class, the girl from that day is sitting right next to her. Mashiro introduces herself like they've never met. She's cheerful, fitting in easily, laughing even when she gets an answer wrong. Nagisa watches, unable to focus. Her thoughts won't stop. The past she buried is catching up to her, and no matter how much she tries to push it away, she knows she can't run from it anymore. Nagisa knows Mashiro isn't to blame, but every time she remembers that day, she can't look at her. She tries to stay calm, but the memories won't let her. Meanwhile, Mashiro, unaware of Nagisa's turmoil, is focused on catching up with classes, smiling as she speaks. Nagisa can only nod awkwardly, struggling to process everything. Mashiro asks for her name, and Nagisa hesitates before answering. Seeing no sign of recognition, she assumes Mashiro doesn't remember her. Maybe that's for the best. Either way, it doesn't matter now. As class continues, Mashiro suddenly feels dizzy. Concerned voices fill the room, but she insists she's fine. Nagisa watches as Mashiro forces a smile, clearly pushing herself too hard. She tells her to stop, but Mashiro keeps pretending everything is okay. The class misunderstands Nagisa's concern, assuming she's worried about Mashiro because she's on the healthcare committee. Before she can protest, she's assigned to take Mashiro to the infirmary. She doesn't want to go, but with everyone watching, she has no choice. Walking side by side, Mashiro apologizes, and Nagisa quietly says it's fine. But inside, she feels anything but fine. At the infirmary, they find it empty. Mashiro thanks Nagisa for helping her, but an awkward silence lingers between them. Nagisa sits down, unsure of what to say. Mashiro watches her, sensing something unspoken between them. Nagisa hesitates to leave Mashiro alone, feeling responsible for her. She already knows Mashiro has always been weak. Mashiro smiles, realizing Nagisa knew all along. Outside, the classmates are playing in PE, and Mashiro listens to the sounds, feeling left out. She had hoped things would be different this time, but here she is again, stuck in the infirmary. Lying on the bed, she stares at the white ceiling, white curtains, and white bed. Everything feels empty, just like her. She tries to like the color white, but she can't, even though her name means white. Nagisa quietly agrees. She feels the same way. She blurts out that she doesn't like Mashiro, but the words don't feel right. Mashiro, overwhelmed, finally breaks down. She admits she hasn't changed, that she feels useless, and that she never wanted to be here in the first place. Nagisa watches her cry, something inside her stirring. She doesn't want to hear Mashiro say these things. She yells, telling her not to think that way. In that moment, she realizes Mashiro has been feeling the same way she has. She had forced herself to accept her reality, to stay positive, but deep down she hated the situation too. But watching Mashiro give up like this, she can't ignore it. She refuses to let her stay like this. Without another word, she turns to leave, determined. Nagisa grabs Mashiro's hand and asks if she truly wants to change. Mashiro is startled, her eyes widening. Nagisa pushes further, calling out Mashiro's frustration with always ending up in the infirmary. She urges her not to accept it, not to give up. Mashiro admits she hates it, the infirmary, her weakness, and even herself for feeling this way. The sight of the room makes her sick, but Nagisa won't let her dwell on it. She tells Mashiro to find a reason to like it, to give it meaning. She suddenly places an eye mask over Mashiro's face, telling her that if she hates looking at it so much, then she shouldn't look at it at all. She insists there has to be a reason why they met again, something that makes this reunion matter. Mashiro listens, something inside her shifting. Nagisa asks her to say she's glad to be here. Overcome with emotions, Nagisa promises to change, to find a reason for being here, and to find a way to like Mashiro. Feeling embarrassed, Nagisa quickly decides to return to class. But as she turns, Mashiro suddenly reaches out, pulling her into an unexpected embrace. Their hearts race, confusion and warmth mixing between them. Mashiro holds on tightly, sensing something new within herself. She asks if Nagisa is angry, but then quietly says she might come to like it after all. She leans closer, her words trailing off into a soft request for a favor. Mashiro, still wearing the eye mask, makes a quiet request. If she collapses again, she wants Nagisa to be the one to bring her to the infirmary. Nagisa hesitates, thinking about her study time, but Mashiro has already decided. With a small smile, Nagisa agrees. Overcome with gratitude, Mashiro throws her arms around Nagisa in a sudden embrace. Nagisa is startled, but Mashiro is determined. She wants to face both the infirmary and Nagisa head-on. As she holds her close, a memory resurfaces. Back then, their bodies were this close too. But something is different now. Nagisa reflects on how her feelings aren't as pure as they once were. Doubts creep in. Will she be able to find a reason to like Mashiro? If she does, will she finally be able to change? As Mashiro gently holds a flower, questions swirl in Nagisa's mind. From outside the infirmary window, petals drift through the air, framing the two girls in their embrace. Nagisa wonders if there will come a day when she can finally see Mashiro smile. Nagisa looks back on the path she chose, questioning if it was the right one. She wants to prove that it wasn't a mistake, that her decision meant something. Determined, she makes a resolution: she will fall in love with Mashiro. As cherry blossoms drift around them, Mashiro's bright smile contrasts Nagisa's uncertain feelings. When will she come to like her? That thought lingers as the school day continues. In class, Nagisa refocuses on her studies, reminding herself of her goal to attend a national university. Mashiro, as cheerful as ever, watches her with admiration. Mashiro suddenly praises Nagisa's intelligence, catching her off guard. She smiles, impressed, while Nagisa hesitates. But beneath the surface, Nagisa still holds onto frustration. Mashiro is the reason she failed her entrance exam. Even though it wasn't Mashiro's fault, Nagisa can't help but feel a mix of emotions whenever she sees her. Nagisa tries to rationalize her feelings. To change herself, she must find a reason to like Mashiro. But Mashiro, unaware of this inner turmoil, continues to smile with a warm and carefree energy that only unsettles Nagisa further. She quickly realizes she has an even bigger problem. She can't focus. Every time she tries to study, she finds herself watching Mashiro instead. It becomes a cycle of distraction, frustration, and lack of progress. If she doesn't do something about this soon, she fears her life will spiral out of control again. Nagisa notices something off about Mashiro. She looks pale, unsteady, as if she's struggling to stay upright. Concerned, Nagisa watches her closely, debating whether to say something. When she finally asks if Mashiro is feeling unwell, Mashiro brushes it off with a dramatic reaction, leaving Nagisa questioning if she should have brought it up at all. As the school bell rings, Nagisa takes the chance to pull Mashiro aside. She insists on honesty, prompting Mashiro to finally admit she isn't feeling well. Without hesitation, Nagisa decides to take her to the infirmary, but before they can make it far, Mashiro stumbles. Without thinking, Nagisa catches her. Mashiro, caught off guard, questions what's happening, but Nagisa remains determined. She lifts Mashiro into her arms, surprising her even more. Despite Mashiro's protests about being too heavy, Nagisa reassures her that she's used to carrying her younger siblings, making it no trouble at all. In fact, she comments that Mashiro is far too light. Arriving at the infirmary, Mashiro sighs, frustrated that she's back here again. Seeing her discomfort, Nagisa hands her an eye mask, telling her to use it as she hates the sight of the infirmary so much. Mashiro puts it on without hesitation, making Nagisa laugh at how quickly she complied. As they talk, something strange happens. Nagisa realizes she's no longer as irritated by Mashiro's presence. The frustration from earlier seems to have faded, and a conversation flows naturally. She wonders if it's because she can't see Mashiro's eyes, making things feel different. The thought leaves her both puzzled and amused. Mashiro lies in the infirmary bed, frustrated that she'll be missing class again. Nagisa points out that if she had taken a break earlier, she might have been able to avoid this. Mashiro hesitates before admitting that she doesn't want others to know how weak she is. She doesn't want to be seen as fragile or pitied. Nagisa is confused by her strong feelings about this, but listens as Mashiro explains her past. She recalls how she used to collapse in class often, and while she was grateful for everyone's kindness, their concern made her feel like she didn't have to try as hard. All she wanted was to keep up with everyone else, not to be treated as someone who always needed help. This thought has always frustrated her, making it difficult to accept kindness from others. Nagisa, unfazed, tells her that she's not annoying. Instead of dwelling on the past, she suggests focusing on what comes next. If Mashiro doesn't want people to see her as weak, she should work on getting stronger, even if it's just little by little. Mashiro is surprised by how easily Nagisa moves forward, always finding solutions instead of getting stuck in her feelings. Nagisa's words hit deep. She suggests that instead of hiding from the problem, Mashiro should try facing it. Wouldn't she feel better that way? Mashiro processes this, realizing that as she gets stronger, she won't have to worry about collapsing anymore. That way, she can focus on her studies and move forward alongside Nagisa. She calls Nagisa amazing, but before anything more can be said, the school bell rings. Determined to return to class, Mashiro gets up to leave, but there's hesitation in her movements. Nagisa watches her go, understanding that knowing what to do and actually doing it are two different things. Some things take time, but at least Mashiro is starting to think about change. Mashiro suddenly reaches out, asking Nagisa for a hug. Caught off guard, Nagisa panics, questioning why she would even ask for that. But Mashiro explains that the last time Nagisa hugged her, it made her feel at ease, so she wants to experience that comfort again. Seeing her sincerity, Nagisa hesitantly gives in, allowing Mashiro to embrace her tightly. As they hold each other, Mashiro softly reassures Nagisa that she will think about what she can do moving forward. However, she also insists that she doesn't want anyone else to know about her poor health. She doesn't want to be seen as weak or fragile. This truth is something she only wants to share with Nagisa. She smiles warmly, calling it a secret between just the two of them. Nagisa, slightly overwhelmed, reluctantly agrees. She watches Mashiro's expression, noting how easily she smiles despite everything. Deep down, she knows that this secret, this connection between them, is only making things more complicated. As Mashiro pulls her in closer, Nagisa wonders if she's just imagining it, or if things between them are about to change in ways she never expected. The students prepare for gym class, changing into their sportswear. Mashiro effortlessly puts on her jacket, while Nagisa struggles, getting stuck in hers. The scene shifts to the volleyball court, where Mashiro excitedly listens to the coach's instructions. Meanwhile, Nagisa is surprised when she is singled out for endurance training, realizing this was her chance to tell the others about her health. However, before she can act, Mashiro cheerfully accepts her role, heading outside. Watching Mashiro, Nagisa finds herself lost in thought, questioning what makes someone like another person. She tries to rationalize it: kindness, humor, attractiveness, but none of these feel like the right reason for her. The confusion only deepens as she wonders what it truly means to like someone. Before she can dwell too much, a lively classmate suddenly approaches her, addressing her with a nickname she doesn't recognize. Nagisa is caught off guard as the girl enthusiastically tries to befriend her, only to realize she never even knew Nagisa's name in the first place. Despite the awkwardness, the girl brushes it off with a bright smile, leaving Nagisa unsure of what just happened. Nagisa stays behind in the gym, bouncing a volleyball absent-mindedly while thinking about Mashiro. She worries about her endurance and whether she'll end up in the infirmary again. Despite her concerns, she brushes them off and continues listing elements while playing with the ball. Her focus wavers as she starts doubting herself, and in that moment, she loses control of the ball. Before she can spiral further, a voice calls out to her, snapping her out of her thoughts. Mashiro waves her over with a bright smile, looking completely unfazed by the training. She asks for help with sit-ups, cheerfully insisting she's fine despite the intense workout. Nagisa agrees and holds her legs down, watching as Mashiro struggles through the exercise. Barely able to do a few sit-ups, Mashiro collapses in exhaustion. Nagisa stares at her in disbelief, surprised at how weak she really is. The teacher allows her to stop, noting that she's completely out of energy. Mashiro laughs it off, acting as if she's used up all her strength and has nothing left. Nagisa checks if she's okay, offering to take her to the infirmary, but Mashiro declines, insisting she feels good. Curious, Mashiro asks how many sit-ups Nagisa can do, impressed by her answer. She comments on how Nagisa is both athletic and smart, but Nagisa downplays it, saying she only knows the basics. Mashiro stares at her in admiration, realizing just how capable she really is. Mashiro stares at Nagisa intensely, making her uneasy. She hesitates before saying she's noticed something about her. Nagisa is caught off guard and asks what she means. Mashiro crosses her arms and gathers her thoughts, then confidently points out that Nagisa never looks her in the eyes. Nagisa tries to brush it off, saying it's just her imagination, but Mashiro isn't convinced. She leans in closer, staring even harder, waiting for an answer. Nagisa shifts uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. Mashiro smirks, teasing that even Nagisa has things she's bad at. Nagisa insists it's just a bad habit, but in her mind, she admits she's simply bad at dealing with Mashiro. Before she can react, Mashiro suddenly grabs her and pulls her down, catching her off guard. She ends up pinned beneath Mashiro, who grins triumphantly. Nagisa struggles, demanding to be let go, but Mashiro refuses, saying she won't until Nagisa looks her in the eyes. Nagisa feels weak, unable to push her off, and finally gives in. With a deep breath, she promises to try, though she struggles to get the words out. Mashiro beams with excitement, saying she'll be waiting. Nagisa slumps in defeat, overwhelmed. Their moment is interrupted when other students call out, inviting them to join the game. Mashiro happily pulls Nagisa along, who reluctantly follows. As Mashiro runs ahead, Nagisa watches her with conflicted feelings. Left alone for a moment, she sighs, questioning what's wrong with her. Her heart pounds as she touches her face, feeling frustrated. She tells herself there's no way she could ever come to like Mashiro. Mashiro greets Nagisa with her usual bright energy, excited about their movie outing. Nagisa, dressed casually with sunglasses, responds stiffly, still not used to this kind of social interaction. She isn't just here for fun. She sees this as a mission. Her goal is to make sure Mashiro lasts through the entire outing without collapsing. She recalls the reason behind this plan. Back in class, Kanda had enthusiastically introduced the movie Ankit, insisting that everyone had seen it and that it was best watched without any prior knowledge. When Nagisa misunderstood and thought it was an actual anklet, Kanda had corrected her, while Mashiro had suddenly suggested that they go see it together. Nagisa had questioned why Mashiro specifically wanted to go with her. Mashiro had simply said she wanted to see it, but Nagisa had overanalyzed it, convincing herself that Mashiro was using this as some kind of practice before inviting other classmates. Determined to help Mashiro gain confidence, Nagisa carefully planned their outing. She believed that if Mashiro could successfully get through a movie without issue, she might feel comfortable spending time with others. That, in turn, would be beneficial for Nagisa as well. With this in mind, she mapped out a detailed route, including stops at a bookstore and a pet shop, thinking Mashiro might enjoy it. As they walked, Mashiro cheerfully complimented Nagisa's outfit, especially her sunglasses. What Mashiro didn't know was that Nagisa had intentionally chosen them as part of her strategy. The dark lenses made her surroundings appear hazier, helping her feel less overwhelmed when interacting with Mashiro. She reassured herself that she wouldn't let Mashiro collapse today, having meticulously planned the shortest and safest route. While Nagisa tried to subtly guide them along her carefully thought-out path, Mashiro, unaware of all this preparation, excitedly urged them toward the theater, full of enthusiasm. Nagisa takes her mission seriously, making sure Mashiro stays hydrated and avoids anything too salty. Mashiro, overwhelmed by Nagisa's intense concern, agrees without much thought. As they head into the theater, Mashiro finally notices the movie's poster and realizes too late that it might be a horror film. Nagisa, equally caught off guard, hesitantly confirms, and they proceed to their seats. During the movie, an eerie scene unfolds when Nagisa picks up what seems to be a lost bracelet. Mashiro, spooked, suggests someone must have dropped it, but the atmosphere turns chilling when the movie character on-screen claims it as their anklet. Suddenly, the horror intensifies, and both girls are thrown into a terrifying experience. Mashiro screams, gripping her seat in fear, while Nagisa remains frozen, regretting not checking the movie's genre beforehand. As the film ends, Mashiro is visibly shaken, exhausted from the experience. Nagisa, concerned, decides that horror movies are off the table from now on. They step outside, still recovering, and Nagisa blames herself for not preparing better. She doesn't want to see Mashiro looking so afraid again and silently vows to be more careful in the future. Trying to shift the mood, Mashiro excitedly suggests heading to the cafe Kanda had recommended. Nagisa agrees, deciding a break is necessary. As they walk, she focuses on making sure Mashiro doesn't overexert herself. But before she can react, Mashiro suddenly clings to her, taking her by surprise. When Nagisa asks what's wrong, Mashiro just laughs it off and cheerfully urges them to keep going. Nagisa, flustered, is left wondering what just happened. Nagisa worries that she might have been walking too fast, but Mashiro quickly denies it, insisting that she was just walking too slow. Nagisa realizes she wasn't paying enough attention and feels like she failed again. But Mashiro, determined, declares that she will work hard to walk at the same pace as Nagisa and catch up to her. Mashiro acknowledges Nagisa's kindness throughout the day and expresses how much she admires her. She sees Nagisa as someone ahead of her, someone she wants to reach. However, she doesn't want Nagisa to slow down for her. She wants to push herself forward instead. With a determined smile, she promises that one day she will catch up. Nagisa is caught off guard, but finds herself laughing at Mashiro's intensity. Mashiro, flustered, demands to know why she's laughing, but Nagisa simply reassures her. She won't slow down, but she will wait. Mashiro, excited, calls the outing a date, which startles Nagisa. When questioned, Mashiro cheerfully explains that she's with someone she likes, so it counts. Before Nagisa can react, Mashiro openly confesses that she likes her. Nagisa is completely stunned, her face burning red. Before she can process it, Mashiro grabs her hand and pulls her forward, claiming it's fun. Nagisa, still overwhelmed, tries to understand why they're suddenly holding hands, but Mashiro remains carefree and full of energy. Later that night, Nagisa receives a message from Mashiro asking to go out again sometime. Smiling to herself, she agrees. Meanwhile, Kanda laughs about the horror movie experience, while Mashiro sulks about the Ankit scene. Despite everything, the day ends on a warm note. The group faces a small but emotional separation as they are assigned to different classes. Mashiro and Kanda dramatically cling to each other, making a scene in the hallway, while Nagisa reminds them that they are just going to different rooms, not parting forever. Despite her usual calm demeanor, even she seems to feel something about the change. As classes begin, Nagisa struggles to focus. She keeps wondering if Mashiro is okay, recalling how she had told her to go to the infirmary if she felt unwell. She debates whether to message her but decides against it, not wanting to bother her. Even though she tries to focus on her studies, she fidgets, feeling restless. Kanda suddenly appears, breaking her thoughts, and casually greets her. When Nagisa asks about Mashiro, Kanda explains that they were supposed to return together, but Mashiro went somewhere on her own and told her to go ahead. A bad feeling creeps into Nagisa's mind as she realizes where Mashiro might have gone. She rushes to the infirmary, pushing aside the curtain to find Mashiro peacefully sleeping. Relief washes over her as she reassures herself that Mashiro is okay. Watching her sleep, she notices how close she is to her face, something she usually finds difficult to do. But right now, it feels natural, maybe because Mashiro is asleep, making it easier for Nagisa to take in her presence without feeling self-conscious. Nagisa watches Mashiro sleep, noticing details she never paid attention to before: her delicate hair, long eyelashes, and pale skin. She hesitates for a moment before realizing Mashiro is what people would call cute. Without thinking, her hand moves on its own, gently brushing Mashiro's hair as she quietly acknowledges the thought. Just as she gets lost in the moment, Mashiro stirs, her eyes fluttering open. Their gazes meet, and Nagisa freezes in place, realizing what she was just doing. Embarrassment floods her, and she immediately pulls back, flustered. Mashiro, still half asleep, doesn't seem to mind and simply greets her, asking if she had woken her up. Nagisa panics, apologizing quickly, but Mashiro reassures her that she was just feeling a little tired. She then smiles, reminding Nagisa that she kept her promise to rest properly. Nagisa, still trying to regain her composure, asks if Mashiro has gotten more comfortable with the infirmary. Mashiro excitedly pulls out an eye mask, revealing that she had kept Nagisa's from before and used it again. To Nagisa, it's just a regular eye mask, but to Mashiro, it's a lucky charm that makes her feel safe. Nagisa sighs, relieved that it helped in some way, but then she hesitates, realizing something. Since Mashiro is calmer now, does that mean they don't have to continue their usual comforting habit anymore? She tries to bring it up indirectly, but Mashiro tilts her head in confusion, asking if she means they're hugging. Nagisa stiffens, her heart pounding, unsure how to respond. Mashiro cheerfully tells Nagisa that if she ever wants something in return, she should just say so. Nagisa, caught off guard by her straightforwardness, struggles to respond. Before she can think of an answer, Mashiro suddenly asks if she can be a little selfish. Without hesitation, she throws herself into Nagisa's arms, hugging her tightly. Nagisa's heart pounds as she tries to process what just happened. Mashiro, on the other hand, seems completely comfortable in the embrace, while Nagisa's mind spirals in confusion. Nagisa awkwardly asks how long they're supposed to stay like this, only to realize that Mashiro has already fallen asleep in her arms. Shock washes over her. How can someone relax this easily in such a situation? While Mashiro rests peacefully, Nagisa's heart races uncontrollably. She doesn't understand why she feels this way. Why is it so different for her? Why can't she experience the same warmth and comfort that Mashiro seems to feel so effortlessly? As she holds Mashiro, she wonders if going through this again and again would eventually let her understand. If this unfamiliar feeling will one day turn into something she can name, she's willing to keep trying until she figures it out. When Mashiro wakes up, she casually insists that she still needs the eye mask, much to Nagisa's disbelief. Mashiro claims it helps her relax even more, brushing off Nagisa's skepticism. But deep down, she realizes something. She's becoming more selfish. The more time she spends with Nagisa, the more she wants to hold on to these moments, even if she doesn't fully understand why yet. Ami greets Nagisa cheerfully at school, but there's something mischievous about her expression. Nagisa immediately picks up on it and asks what's going on. Ami hesitates for a moment before revealing that she saw something the previous day, Nagisa and Mashiro hugging each other. The realization hits Nagisa like a shock, her mind racing as she processes the fact that someone else witnessed that moment. Panicked, Nagisa insists that Ami keep it a secret. Ami agrees but admits that it was surprising to see them like that. She points out that Nagisa usually gives off a cool and composed vibe, so watching her act differently around Mashiro made her realize something. Without warning, Ami lunges forward, declaring that she wants a hug too. Caught off guard, Nagisa freezes as Ami embraces her, but almost immediately, she realizes that it feels completely different from when she hugged Mashiro. Nagisa stands awkwardly, processing the unfamiliar sensation. Ami, however, casually comments that the hug looked much better when it was with Mashiro, comparing it to how her younger brothers used to cling to her. Nagisa doesn't understand why it felt so different, but Ami simply shrugs, teasing that maybe Mashiro is just special. The thought lingers in Nagisa's mind, making her question what exactly makes Mashiro stand out so much to her. Before she can dwell on it further, Ami gets called away by another student. As she walks off, Nagisa watches her go, still left with unanswered questions about her own feelings. Nagisa reflects on the idea of Mashiro being special. She realizes that unlike Ami, Mashiro carries a burden, a deep-seated trauma that makes their closeness seem different to others. But to her, it isn't about friendliness or warmth. It's something more complicated, something opposite of liking. It's hate. This realization makes her question everything. She wonders if she's made any progress in understanding Mashiro, in learning to like her. Just as these thoughts swirl in her mind, Mashiro appears with a bright smile, greeting her with warmth that contrasts sharply with her own internal confusion. Seeing Mashiro so cheerful and affectionate throws her off balance. She barely manages to respond, and Mashiro, oblivious to her turmoil, continues speaking happily. Flustered, Nagisa quickly brushes off whatever expression she had just made, but the moment lingers. As the day progresses, she finds herself lost in thought, watching Mashiro interact with others so effortlessly. Whether it's during class, lunch, or casual conversations, Mashiro always seems at ease. Nagisa, however, remains stuck in her own head. She observes Mashiro from a distance, feeling something stir within her. As Mashiro laughs and enjoys herself, Nagisa looks away, her expression unreadable. As the afternoon light filters through the classroom, she walks in quietly, her gaze falling on the girl sitting by the window, lost in thought. Seeing her like this stirs something unfamiliar in her chest. The girl, sensing her presence, turns around with a bright smile, calling her name in excitement. They fall into conversation naturally. She notices that the other girl is still working on a school form, explaining she hasn't decided on her future yet. The uncertainty in her words lingers in the air, but she reassures her that no one really knows without trying first. After a moment of silence, she calls out to her by her last name, making her look up in curiosity. There's hesitation, but finally, she gathers the courage to say it. She wants to hug her. The response is immediate, accepting, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Without a second thought, arms wrap around her, pulling her in close. The warmth is overwhelming, and for a moment, time slows. She isn't sure what this feeling is, only that it feels different from before. The other girl, holding her gently, asks if something happened, as she needs comfort. She shakes her head. No, nothing bad happened. She just wanted to do this. There's something she's trying to understand. Hearing that, the other girl only smiles, embracing her more firmly. If this helps in any way, then she's happy to do it. And in that moment, held in her arms, she realizes this warmth, this closeness, it might be exactly what she was searching for. Held close in a quiet embrace, she feels the warmth of the moment sink in. It's different from before, closer, softer, less complicated. There's a strange clarity in this, a quiet confirmation of something she had been uncertain about. She doesn't hate this. In fact, it feels natural. As they pull away, she is asked if she found what she was looking for. She isn't sure, but maybe she understands a little more now. A simple thanks is exchanged, at request. If she ever figures it out completely, could she share it? The thought lingers between them, uncertain but hopeful. They reflect on how often they say, one day, making promises for the future. But today, something actually came true. The realization catches her off guard. She's looking into her eyes, really seeing her, and that simple act brings an unexpected happiness. Another small wish is granted, a name, spoken directly, even if shyly. But there's still hesitation. Maybe next time, maybe one day. That's good enough for now. Watching her smile, she feels something shift within. If she doesn't hate her, does that mean she's come to like her? The thought settles gently, not overwhelming but undeniable. But as soon as that realization comes, a sudden wave of nerves rushes in. She turns away, struggling to meet her gaze. Why, even now, when everything should be fine, does she still feel this way? Even though she should have come to like her, she still can't bring herself to look directly at her face.